So, I recently had a question asked, and I wanted to answer. Why do you not back the blue? Now, a lot of you, before you hear this, because I know you never listen to everything, you're going to say you're anti-authority. And this is true, but there's a much larger contextual reason why I don't back the blue. Well, let's start with the people who do. Why is it the people who back the blue usually back all of the individuals who are violating people's fundamental human and basic rights? Not as a citizen. Let's take the citizen out of the equation, because we know law enforcement is a global phenomenon. I wouldn't back SARS in Nigeria. And remember when Nigerians were protesting against their police force? So, I know people tend to look at things on a micro level, but we zoom out, macro. But the American citizen tends to only back the blue when it's divisive. And I'm not saying in all cases the officer is always in the wrong. There are some times when decisions have to be made. And maybe it was the correct decision. But there's this trend of individuals who back the blue and say they do, that they're backing Derek Chauvin. They're backing the individual who we can all see shouldn't be doing the job that he's doing. They're backing the officer who broke into her neighbor's apartment and shot him while he was eating ice cream on his couch. And then said that she didn't know. She thought that was her apartment. You remember that officer? That's the type of people that they're backing when they say back the blue. And it would kind of be like me saying back the apple to represent teachers. Or I back the nurses to represent nurses. And then I'm only backing the teachers who are molesting children. I'm only backing the teachers who are failing all of their students. I'm only backing the nurses whose patients die, or whose patients they over-medicate or under-medicate. It seems like to me the individuals who say back the blue, and I could be wrong about my perception of them, but I don't think I am. It seems like they're only backing the really bad ones. I don't see them supporting heroic officers. They're only defending the bad ones. Now, I'm sure with every profession there's good and bad. There are good teachers and good nurses, bad teachers and bad nurses. So there's got to be good police officers. Which brings me to my next point. The people who say back the blue are hypocrites. Because we can all see with our own eyes on January 6th, the DC Metropolitan Police, they weren't backing the police. They were doing the same thing they accused Antifa and Black Lives Matter of doing, which was assaulting the police. So you can't go from backing an entire institution to violently trying to assault the institution you claim to support. And they did it in less than a year. Because if you remember, the BLM protest started after George Floyd, which was really in the summer of 2020. And then they went out there January 6th of 2021 and assaulted police. The same critique and criticism that they had of young people doing it. Older men went and did it themselves. But that's America in a nutshell. The inconsistencies. We talked about this. It's nothing but inconsistencies and hypocrisy. It's been this way. Now, the institution, police. Let's talk about this. I can see a lot of other nations having police. I really can. But America, it's a little strange to have police. And you know, at one time we did. Now, some people say at the time that we didn't have police, America was a more orderly society. I will tell you why they say that. Because the times when we did not have police, African people were enslaved in this country. It was only after slavery was abolished that policing and law enforcement appeared in America. This was due to a fear amongst the Anglo-Saxon American society that black people would harm them now that they were newly freed. And so they needed a form of protection. This is where policing comes from in America. Now you say that's outlandish. No, what's outlandish is this. Why does a country whose every citizen has the right? See, this is when you try to mess with an aisle, you get something that you don't want to get. Why does a country whose says that every citizen has a right to bear arms need a third party to bear arms to protect them? Every citizen has a right to bear arms. So why do you need a third party mediator to also be armed to litigate your disputes, Americans? See, you think I don't know, but we know. We know this country. We know. So, let's go to other countries now, shall we? A law enforcement is not exactly liked in any country. Tell me a country where people like the police. Give me a country. Name me any country, and I'll tell you what happens. I've been to a lot of places in South America, which is also America. I know a lot of people in Central America, which the United States technically is central. I know a lot of people don't think that South America is part of America, but it is. I've been to a lot of places in South America, and no one likes the police there either. You go anywhere and you see A, C, A, B. Everywhere. It's not just in Seattle. You can go to Colombia Nicaragua, Chile, Honduras, Argentina, and you see ACAB. Everybody knows that the police is an institution to control the free movement and will of the citizenry. Now you say they only bug you if you're a criminal. Really? Everybody's a criminal in this country. And they only pick on certain criminals. So that logic is not true either. No. If you're trying to grow certain things, they bug you in every country. Now, somebody says you can't plant a seed in the ground and grow what you want to grow. And they use law enforcement, the police, to enforce that rule. But the ground doesn't belong to these people who tell you you can't put a seed in it. The seed doesn't belong to those people. But they use a third-party mediator with a weapon to enforce that rule. And that's why they don't like law enforcement. That's why yours truly doesn't fuck with the police. This has been a long-standing tradition. Now, you say there's law enforcement in communist and socialist countries. Yes, this is true. And I kind of have a problem with it, but I kind of understand why it's necessary. You know, nowadays, and probably always, nation states to other nation states are bullies. How many countries has America run up into, stolen their resources by the barrel of a gun? So many, I've lost count. I don't think anybody has a true count. So when other people come and take your things, you have to have a way of defending yourself. If people didn't do such horrible and horrendous things to other people, I truly think socialists wouldn't support it. Western socialists don't support policing. Definitely not in the current construct that the United States has. In America, if you're a law enforcement officer, correct me if I'm wrong, you have something called qualified immunity. And basically what that means is, if you murder someone like Breonna Taylor in her apartment, you're immune from consequences. It's not considered murder. It's justified. So now, stick with me on this. If I'm a neo-Nazi, Klansman, KKK, Oath Keeper, Proud Boy, 3%er, Boogaloo, and I applied to get on the NYPD, CPD, MPD, you name the department, SPD, if I get on the department and I'm a racist, and I hate people of other races, what do you think I might do with my gun? Well, you see it all the time on the news, right? So the way the system is constructed also has a lot to do with the disdain for the institution. People don't like that construct. We're racist, known racist. And the reason I say they're known racist is because the FBI in this country did a whole report that said racists were determined to barrel into local police departments. And this was back in 2017. So they've known this. So when they release recordings of the Wilmington police officer saying that he wants to have a purge and slaughter black people, he can't wait. Why are we all acting surprised as Americans? You know the system as it's constituted condones, even willfully allows for such things. We've seen it time and time again. Tamir Rice. All the people that say they're pro-life and they don't support children being murdered. Why do they support the law enforcement officer who rode into the park and 2 seconds after he opened his door murdered Tamir Rice? Why do they support individuals like that? If they're pro-life and against child murder. See, they can tell you these things, but they can't say it to me. Because this is bullshit impenetrable. And I know all the bullshit. All of it. Even the tiny, 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 tiny bullshit, I know. The eagle is never going to get one over on the owl. I never try to get one over on the eagle, but they always think they can get one over on us. Not going to happen. And then the back debate. Why is it that it's a fraternal order? Why do they call it a fraternal order? Anybody ever question that? A fraternal order? A fraternity is for men, right? Boys, young men. Is masculine. So therein lies the problem. There's nothing to counterbalance the excessive toxicity of it. You know, you have to have counterbalances. The universe has counterbalances. Humans, you don't. But the universe, they do. And that's why it's completely out of balance. Why you see the gross corruption. That's why you see popularity of the institution crumbling. Because people can see that it has no balance. You know, somebody said they're a gang. Police are a gang. They are. They're the largest global cartel gang that exists on the planet. And they're legalized by wealthy financiers in most countries. Because if the people had a vote, they would do away with policing. They would. But wealthy financiers tell them, you need someone to protect you. What will happen if someone breaks into your home? Think about this. 10 out of 10 times you call the police after something has already occurred. Very rarely do police ever stop something. Even if they arrive on the scene and stop something from bad happening, the bad thing is generally already happened. We don't have, like in the Minority Report, pre-crime, where you can predict the crime before it happens and they arrest you. Generally speaking, you're already murdered when they try to hunt down the suspect. So this whole narrative and brainwashing around policing has been engineered and implanted into people's minds that they prevent something. They solve something. Let's go to that one, solving crimes. Based off of percentages, police very rarely solve anything. I know you think every criminal gets caught and arrested. In a nation of 330 million, how many Americans are behind bars? Millions, but nowhere near the amount that should be. Because that would mean they would have to put everyone in prison. So they very rarely solve crimes, especially when it comes to violent crime. Look at the percentage of homicides solved. It's less than 40%. Now, if you got less than 40% on any test paper, what grade would you get? I think 40% is an F. So if you get like a 38 or 39%, that's an F in homicide, right? Rape, it's even worse for rape. It's like in the teens, the high teens. Carjacking, oh my goodness, hardly ever. Robbery, hardly ever. So if you talk about even solving crimes, horrible percentage rates. Now, what about law enforcement officers who commit crimes? There was recently a study that said about 40% of people who work in law enforcement have committed domestic violence. I would argue that number is much higher. 40% of people who work in law enforcement commit domestic violence. Meaning when they go home, they take out their frustration on the nearest person surrounding them. Oftentimes, children and women. This is the profession you want to back the blue. And then people are hypocritical because they criticize police in other countries. Americans will criticize what the Russian police and Chinese police do. The Chinese police will criticize what American police do. But when you look at it and examine it, they all do the same thing. They abuse their citizenry. They over-police their citizenry. They tell their citizenry what they can and cannot do. And oftentimes they don't abide by their own rules. How many times have you seen an American police car turn on its squad lights and run a light, pretending that they're going to chase a criminal? We know they don't want to sit at the light. I've seen so many run stop signs, park near fire hydrants, park in handicapped spaces. For goodness sake, if I was an enforcer of the law and I saw a law enforcement vehicle in a handicapped spot, I should have a way where I can write a $500 ticket and collect that money on behalf of the city. What? If I did it, it would be ticketed. But when they do it, it's okay. They're supposed to enforce the law. And you can't say that they didn't know, because they love to do that one on us. And they say ignorance of the law is no excuse for not abiding by the law. So if they didn't know it was a handicapped space, I would still give them a ticket. They would say, you have to rescind this. I would say, no, I don't. Ignorance of the law is no excuse for not abiding by it. So that in a nutshell is why I don't back the blue. They get away with doing too much dirt. Here, there, and everywhere. And they try to suppress and quell the citizenry from our rights, our basic human rights. They tell us what seeds we cannot plant, how much we can grow and what we cannot grow. The planet doesn't belong to the blue. Who told them how much we could grow and how much we couldn't? We put up with this. We as the citizenry, as people on this planet, we put up with these rules. Arbitrary rules that are written by men that don't exist in any other realm and shouldn't exist here. Now they say if you didn't have police, you would have anarchy. We've had 600 mass shootings this year. For the third straight year in America, there have been 600 mass shootings. What do you call that? I call it anarchy. Americans will say, well, at least we don't have 2,000. We saw what happened in Uvalde, right? All of those armed police officers right outside the door. And like cowards, all of them let those children be executed. None of them wanted to go in there and do police work. When it was time to do police work, what we've all grown up seeing in Dragnet, Andy Griffith, Hawaii Five-0, when it was time to really do the police work, put the gloves on, they were cowards, weren't they? They didn't want to do their job. Isn't that an indictment of the institution? That's more of an indictment of the institution than Derek Chauvin. And that was an indictment in and of itself. So in less than a decade, you've had multiple indictments of an institution that we all can see is not working for the citizenry. You know, at some point, people got sick of the redcoats being quartered in their homes. And they wrote down that during peacetime, you couldn't quarter troops in people's houses. But yet the police can come into your community and drive around looking for problems, looking for poor people trying to survive, and harass, brutalize, unalive them. Freddie Gray was on the corner selling Lucy's. For those of you who don't know, a Lucy is a single cigarette. He was selling Lucy's in Baltimore. And the police came, 4 of them. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4. And put him in a chokehold. And choked him to death. And they never got over the fact that the state's Attorney General, Marilyn Mosby, held those police officers accountable for the death of Freddie Gray. He was selling loose cigarettes on the corner to try to make money, to eat. And they harassed him. I'm supposed to support an institution like that, I guess. You can do whatever you want to do. Please allow me to do what I want to do. I'm not backing the blue. I'm not stupid like a lot of you.